come on. Hey, feel the rhythm. It's getting from the deepest of your soul. Now, use your senses, and everything will be easier than before. Keep on moving, funk is coming. Let yourself be, you'll become the star in this die. Spread your wings, fly to me, funk is coming.
Mr. Christopher the Maute. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. Doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm home a little early from work, so I'm kind of fixing things here. I'm home a little early from work because I'm trying to take the trains least traveled because we're in the middle of the Omicron spike. So, yeah, things are going okay. After this, I'm going to work on some lectures for school, and then I'm going to do some work at home, and then I'm going to make a nice dinner. I'm going to have a chill evening with my family.
Nice.
Life is good, in other words.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I think it's been hard for everybody. Last few years. So, how did you adjust to the situation? Was it hard for you?
Well, as it played out in America, at least for me, both Shanna and I were able to maintain our jobs. Mine let me work remotely for I think it was 6 months, a good chunk of time. Shanna kept working throughout the whole thing. So that made things a little bit weird, right? Because she would leave for the whole day and I'd be home for the whole day. The kids would be homeschooling or remote learning more appropriately. So it was mostly a quiet house, and that was a weird lifestyle. I actually enjoyed it because I'm a little bit of an introvert. So publicly, I'm an extrovert. You can tell I'm gregarious, and I like to bust chops and shit. But when it's just me, I'm very much an introvert privately. So being home for that chunk of time was a little wonderful for me because I got to set my own schedule and stick to it, and there was nice structure. And then when coming back to work was a little anxious. And then work got super busy as things kind of seemed to be getting normal at the beginning of last year. And then all the projects at work that we couldn't do, we had to start doing. So everything just bottlenecked. And then the supply chain got effed. You know what I mean? And then it was just like, oh, this is what it's going to be like working right now in the COVID world. Now, I manage a lab that tests human participants. So that added a different layer. My job is to take things out of and put things into people's nose and mouths. Right. So and that is the exact vector through which this disease spreads. And so a bunch of our, a bunch of our endpoints have people just volatilizing their respiratory and nasal contents all over the room.
Right.
Whether it's spirometry or a nasal lavage or whatever. Excuse me. So we had to put some different kind of rules in place for how we did things, different protocols. And so, I don't mind being busy at work, but things were crazy busy. There were literally 3 weeks where I pulled in 5 10-hour days. You know what I mean? And then I think I worked 1 or 2 of those Saturdays just to try to stay on top of things.
So my job is to let people speak. I don't want to interfere because we haven't got too much time. But there's an aspect I think it might be quite interesting. So you basically work in research, right? I mean, you smell farts and bad shit. So
Mostly.
And by the
People
and by
fart
the
into
way,
chairs, and then I smell the chairs.
yeah, and by the way, when they said, putting things into the nose, I saw Sam just yesterday, and he had a test in Italy, and he said, "Oh, I didn't know that in Italy you actually tickle the brain." So apparently they put the thing so up his nose it was tickling his brain. But anyway, that's Sam. No, the thing which was interesting me. I mean, you work in research and all this stuff. What were your I don't want to say impressions, but what were your ideas about the reception that and the development in the reception of the general public towards COVID and vaccine specifically? I mean, I think it mixes
The
with the
reaction to the general
political.
public,
Yeah,
because there's two. So there's two reactions. The reaction is from the science community, the CDC and the NIH,
right.
and the advice that they gave, and that informed whatever mandates that were put in place, yada yada. And then there's the reaction of the public of that information, right?
Right. And what was your impression about that reaction? Because, I mean,
Public
I think it's
reaction?
interesting from the point of view of somebody which is in research, to see, to actually have a message of, why that happened, why people think that kind of stuff, stuff like that.
I have to admit, I was a little bit blown away at the resistance. I knew that there were anti-vaxxers, and America has a very large anti-vax population. I knew that they exist. I knew that denialism and anti-scientism existed, right? I just didn't think that it would come to a head the way that it did because the vaccine was recommended as a way to as a protection against the virus. And I also was impressed with how easy people who didn't really have much of a take on it were persuaded to think that somehow the vaccine is more dangerous than getting the disease itself, which is still a theme. So it's disappointing, I think, is the main thing. And I know that that's condescending and paternal to a certain extent, but it's like, how can I put this? I don't have a place in my mind to understand or to come from a place where I know what's best for me about systems I don't understand, like my immune system or my cardiovascular system or my respiratory system. That's the joy of outsourcing things. That's why we live in societies where you don't have to be a jack of all trades, right? That's the libertarian fallacy, that fucking line of thinking. And I'll bring this back to COVID in just a second. But just the idea that, the Wild West was better or this time was better. And it's like, no, man. Like, I don't want to have to be my own dentist and plumber and mechanic and blah, 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 and then pursue all the other things that I like. No, I want to be able to outsource. I want to bring my car to a mechanic. I want to, when I'm sick, I want to go to a doctor. I want to go to an expert, right? Whether it's a doctor or a plumber or a mechanic. And I'm going to trust that expert, not 100%, provisionally. I happen to know something about research, and I can read scientific articles, and I can understand when people are opining and whether it meets the consensus of the experts or not, right? So I think that I can make my own decisions once I'm informed by reliable sources.
Okay,
but
so
I don't think that people don't even get to the reliable source step.
Right.
To get the right information, to make their own decisions, to then have that bullshit libertarian line of like, I did my own research and I know what's best for me. A, no, you don't. And B, fuck you.
Okay, fuck you is always a good answer. But, so you are a communicator, right? Because you teach, you take courses. Yeah, well, you are.
I might not be doing a great job right now.
Hey, man,
right?
Listen, I'm paying you a compliment, so take it. It doesn't happen too much. So you're a communicator and you are a man of science, right? So what do you think he might have done differently to to express, the concepts from both the scientific and the political world towards the whole situation. Do you have an idea about that? Because of course you have. I mean, on the internet, everybody's a fucking expert. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Right. Let me see if this makes a difference. Does that make a difference? So we have to remember that this went down in the last year of Trump. So my analogy is that's like placing landmines on a tennis court and wondering why the players aren't doing as well, right? There were so many obstacles to good science getting to the public that were put in place specifically by Trump's administration that my answer only works in a idealized situation where the politicians want to get out the information as much as the public health experts do. Right? And that wasn't the case. So I guess in this fantasy answer to your question, Trump's not president, right? And then the CDC is able to have their weekly public meetings talking about things out in the open so that there's transparency, but that wasn't allowed. Instead, for a good chunk of time, they were just these weird press conferences where Trump was there. Why the fuck is Trump at a goddamn press conference for science saying weird shit about bleach and UV lights? And like, that is, that's the equivalent of putting like a ravenous hyena in the room of the scientific experts trying to do their jobs. Like, what the fuck? Anyway, so the scientists would be able to follow protocol, which wasn't allowed, right? Protocol is kind of what started when Biden started. There's weekly meetings, weekly congressional, hearings to keep the scientific community in check. And all of these things will be done in public, and all the good information is provided from all the appropriate sources. Now, in this utopic world, the CDC and the NIH, which would be in America the gold standards of information, they wouldn't fuck up as much either, right? So kudos to Trump for warp speed vaccines, but so they kind of misstepped with the initial tests that the CDC came out with. So mistakes are to be made, but I think that the weird thing in the scientific community is we expect there to be mistakes. All of our knowledge is provisional, and we live in a world of probabilistic uncertainty. That's uncomfortable as shit to people whose relatives are dying on an incubator or intubator, because of this fucking virus. So science communication to begin with is difficult. If the regular protocols were put in place so that science communication from the experts could reach the public using the avenues that are normally used from the beginning, that certainly would have helped. And I think that just being honest about the fact that it is an ever-changing landscape, therefore, our provisional knowledge needs to change along with it. Just a reaffirmation that to expect, like, this is what we know now, and this could change depending on what happens in the future. Just beating home that idea, right? Because it's usually like the super simple American rednecks that don't seem to get that. Like, ooh, you lied. You said this in the past. And it's like, listen, son, would you blame a fucking Bronco rider for changing his position in the saddle, during the fucking Bronco riding competition? No, they have to adjust because the landscape is changing in real time. That's what the fuck we're doing, except the virus is the Bronco, right? So, like, I don't understand why people don't get that.
No, I think I understand. I think, the gist of it is that you don't think that oversimplifying was a good tactic. That if you want to teach something to somebody, even if that somebody might be an idiot, it's not really good to treat him like an idiot. You've got to at least try to make him understand the complex question.
But it's difficult, right? Because if you go too simple, it sounds paternal, like condescending.
Right.
If you go too complicated, it sounds like you're listening to the oracle on Delphi, speak gobbledygook about the predictions of whatever, right? It just doesn't make sense. So it's like finding that balance. No one's going to be happy. You're not going to make everyone happy all the time.
Right.
The science communication is, from my perspective, my technique is answering things in as pithy a way as possible, simple, but not simplistic, and then allowing the person I'm talking to ask pointed questions about what I said to get to the details.
Right.
Because how else am I going to know what they really want to know beyond what I said
Right.
until they ask?
Okay, so let me switch gears for a second and try to catch you a little bit off guard. So you are a family man. I know that. Yeah. Oh yeah. You're definitely a super family man. I mean,
Two compliments.
two compliments. Well,
Two
yeah.
compliments.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Take
Great.
notes,
And you're
man.
going to broadcast this, right?
Oh yeah. Fuck me. Yeah, I might. So yeah. I mean, I know you. I think good enough to really to think that my feeling is that you put the family really on top of your values. Would you want to elaborate a little bit of that? How important is the family to you? How important are the failures that you meet in every day? Well, I would say running a family, because that might seem a little bit too patriarchal, but just being part of the family and putting your contribution, in the whole thing. How do you approach that? Because you've had a life where you didn't have a family and you had a pretty funky life before, So
It did. Yeah, very different. So yeah, so that there's two layers to that, right? So there's the family of which I am a son, right? So my mom and my siblings, and my dad when he was alive, and then there's like the Insta family. So for those who may be watching that don't know what we're talking about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I met Shanna, and somewhere within the next couple of years, we ended up moving in together and getting married. And so it was like Insta family for me. I never had kids. I never had kids. So now I do. Now I have 3. Right? It's like Insta family, just add love. And all of a sudden I had a 10-year-old at the time and an 11-year-old and a 16-year-old. 16 is 22 or 21. And I have a 15 and 17-year-old in the house. So in March, I'll have a 16 and 17-year-old in the house. So both levels of my family are very important to me. I'm fortunate that I was raised in a family that, when I was growing up, I thought we were the Italian-American Cleaver family, like Leave It to Beaver kind of, because my parents stayed married. And that was super unusual. Like, growing up in the 70s when divorces were 70s and 80s where they were spiking. And of course, as I grew older, I realized that every family's a little dysfunctional, just in their own special way. But my family's dysfunction, wasn't super duper intense. You know what I mean? There's no great family drama when I was growing up. So that made family very important to me. And I know people have families that they don't get along with their siblings. They don't get along with their parents. I never experienced that. So I don't want to say that family should be important for everybody, but it sure is important to me for those reasons. I get along famously with my brother and sister, my nieces and nephews, my mom. And switching to this level, where I am the stepfather, my kids are great. I hit the jackpot. So to answer your question, my approach to handling the family is mostly to try to be a supportive resource that just in my behaviors, it's implicit how much I love you, right? But I also say it as frequently as possible. You know what I mean? Of course, I say it to Shanna like every day, multiple times a day. And with the kids being, 15 and 17, it's a little weird to be just like showering them with I love yous, and it also makes them cringe. Sometimes I'll do it specifically to make them cringe. but the approach is like, you've been to my house. The desk that I'm sitting at is in the living room specifically because I want to maintain accessibility to the kids, right? So there's 3 floors to the townhouse that we live in. The kids' bedrooms are upstairs. The middle level is the kitchen. This is my like semi office. I'll just do this. Bloop. Behind me is the couch and the TV living room area. And then that's the dining area right over there with Shanna's plants. And there's the door to the kitchen and bathroom. So I'm super accessible. When the kids come downstairs for a question, they don't have to knock on a door. They don't have to come down 2 flights of stairs. They don't have to wonder if I'm busy. I'm right here.
Yeah.
So I think that openness communicates something. It changes the landscape. It opens, it invites communication in ways that having an office with a door I can close behind me, as much as I might like it sometimes or prefer it when I have like projects I need to hyper focus, in general, not having it is a benefit because it does encourage the kids to communicate with me and ask me questions. And sometimes just when they want to come downstairs and have a snack, just interrupt their snack with a shoot in the shit session.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I would miss if I was like downstairs or again
Right.
in a room office that had a door closed behind me. But because I studied child development, because I teach child development, I try to use my knowledge, my theoretical knowledge, practically. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know at the ages my kids are at, I have a pretty good idea of where they are cognitively and socially, and
Right.
they still surprise me, because
Yeah.
they speak. They're at the age where they speak like adults. They joke like adults. They're savvy in an adult-like way, but they're children. They forget stupid shit, get really upset over things that adults don't. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're still children,
Right.
but they have this wonderful patina of adulthood, which is great because dinner table conversations are fun. Or that's another thing. Once I was in the family, I implemented dinner table time. Right, dinner is to be had together at the dinner table as often as possible. So, so dinner table conversation is hilarious because the kids are savvy, they're quick-witted, they're sarcastic, they know you can see that they're pushing boundaries. Oops. You can see that they're pushing boundaries, and it's fun kind of letting them and then afterwards processing it with them, being like, okay, what you did there was this, that, and the other. So so that kind of fits with my approach because I want to be a resource. I want to be supportive. I want it to be implicit that I'm here to provide structure, love, and not be an asshole because they're gonna learn something. And my main thing is, what is it that they're gonna learn? Whether you do something or not, as a parent, they're gonna learn something. What are
Yeah.
they gonna learn?
Yeah. No,
So those are the questions that I like to ask myself. Like, all right, in this situation, if I do this, they'll be pissed. But if I don't do something, they won't. There's no consequences for what happened. It's like, all right, should I do something or not do? What are they going to learn?
right.
That's the question I always ask. So that's the position I come from with this.
Okay. So we are into the last step of this, really loose conversation. We don't want to drag it too much because,
No.
So it is the point where I ask you 3 questions that I asked you to tell me that you want me to ask you. Okay, so
Yes.
the first one is hold on a second. Okay, so the first one is, why do you hate answering questions?
Because it always sounds like someone's second guessing me, and I hate that. And it sounds like manipulation. And I'm super sensitive. So if there is one dark vein in how I was raised, it is being hypersensitive to manipulation. Because I have an Italian American mom, and I'm the youngest. I'm the mama's boy, right? I'm the youngest. So, so I'm very sensitive to manipulation and can detect it from a mile away. And for some reason, questions trigger that weird reflex And even though I know that it's mostly irrational, but sometimes, they are, especially having been online. Sometimes people asking questions isn't just them asking questions. So like my history with manipulation and the way that those land make me like feel weird about answering questions.
Right, right. Yeah,
Does that make
yeah, okay.
sense?
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. It also makes a lot of sense why when you answer, you take a lot of time. I mean, you just want to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. It's bloody insane, man. But yeah, anyway. I
Hey,
mean,
you're the asshole who listens to me. What can I
hey,
say?
come on. I mean, 20 minutes, I asked you 2 questions. I mean, I hardly manipulated you. So, the second question is, what do you think about alcoholism and depression?
Alcoholism and depression. That answer is simple. I think that they are both diseases that need to be destigmatized.
And I drink to that. The third
Right on.
question is, why do you engage online? And let me add, I never do that, but let me add, Mr. Bridge Builder.
Mr. Bridge Builder. Oh my God. You're an asshole because my answer is for the connection. And what does a bridge do? Is that it connects. But a bridge connects like I do like those connections.
No. Hold on a second. Don't use my interlude for your answer. The question is, why do you engage online?
Contrast.
Yeah.
Azza.
Why do you engage online? That's the question.
For connection.
Oh, bloody
The answer
hell.
is for connection. But it's for mostly like this kind of connection. When I first went online, I was trying to make connections between factions, it seemed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I always thought that a good conversation will always win the day. So I purposely looked for people I disagreed with to show the strength of good conversation. I'm still into good conversation, but it's just not like making a show of it as much. So I like this kind of conversation. I like this kind of connection.
Uh-huh.
So from the people I met online, I was fortunate enough to have built a tight little cohort of awesome people that I want to maintain connection with. So
Right.
my role online is mostly for connection, connecting to those people, meeting some new people, but I'm kind of reaching the age where I'm not really here to make friends.
Oh, boy. Oh, you're getting bitter and old.
Oh, I'm getting old.
Yeah.
See, Shanna always calls me out for being angry and impatient in ways that I don't see it, that I have a blind spot in seeing in myself. That blind spot is becoming less blind. The older I get, I see what she's talking about. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we have a little bit more time. Tell me a little bit about music, because music is another. I know that music is another big part of your life. What I never understood from you is that if it's a relief valve for, just a relief valve for pressure that you have, or just, a tool to express something that you don't, in speaking and teaching and doing whatever the hell that you do.
Both. So
Both.
it depends on how much time I
Jesus
have.
Christ, both.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
I'm asking the questions, they're giving you the bloody answers, and then you feel manipulated. Okay, carry on, Mr. Smarty Pants. Carry on.
Well, I mean, you provided the answers with the
Yeah.
questions. You just admitted that you did.
Because I'm a
Goddamn
fucking genius,
manipulator.
that's why.
Saw that coming from a mile away. Depending on how much time I have, right? Like right now, I don't have a lot of time for music, so it's mostly like I'll put on a backing track and just shred. Sunday mornings, I'll just put the news on, politics, and drink coffee and just like practice bass, and it's a wonderful way. It's like meditative. And then when I have a lot of time, music for me is like the best jigsaw puzzle of all time, because when you're done, you have something that just sounds beautiful. So once you get deep into like music and music theory, and you understand what the rules are and how you can break them, you come up with just the most beautiful sounding things. And what's better than putting together a puzzle that in the end is a standalone piece of art?
I see. Okay. So I think that's more than enough. I hope that people, manage to know you a little bit better. If they want to get more in touch with you, they can send pigeons and hope that you will catch them.
Smoke signals.
Yeah. Smoke signals. That's what we use. All farts. And I mean, there is always place for for a good chat. So
Yes.
thank you very much, Christopher. I mean, it's really appreciated.
Pleasure is mine, Fabio.
Yeah. So I will talk to you soon. Okay.
I hope so.
Cheers,
So-
man. Thank you very much.
If I didn't care more than words can say, if I didn't care, would I feel this way?